Plato's allegory of the cave is like Dan Harmon's story circle, or like Freytag's pyramid, or like the monomyth or the hero's journey. It's just a way to look at stories. And Plato's cave allegory starts like this. There is a wall, a concrete wall, and you are chained to that wall. That wall could symbolize, the whole thing could be inside your mind, or it could be a psychological thing, kind of like the hero's journey could be from consciousness to unconsciousness back to consciousness. Anyway, you are chained to this concrete wall, and there's some device that holds your head in place too. You are a slave along with other slaves, but you don't know you're a slave. You're in a prison that you can't see. On the cave wall across from you are shadows. There's a puppet show, a shadow puppet show. And you watch the show and you start rooting for this puppet or that puppet, but you don't know they're puppets. You start naming the shadows. I like the shadow on the left. I think the shadow on the right is more to my liking. And you start rewarding your fellow slaves for predicting how the show might go. Behind the concrete wall is a puppeteer, a puppet master. Now, again, this could all be psychological if you want to look at it that way, and the concrete wall might be your five senses. You really are a slave to your own five senses and your own perception.
This time, let go your conscious self and act on instinct.
With the blast shield down, I can't even see. How am I supposed to fight?
Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them.
The puppet master is holding a three-dimensional object of a bird, and behind the puppet master is a fire. The fire is man-made light. Prometheus steals fire from the gods. In the sky is God-made light, is the sun. Anyway, so the puppet master holds up these three-dimensional objects. They cast a shadow on the wall. All the slaves watch the puppet show, and they're happy. They're happy. They don't know they're slaves. It is from watching the puppet show that they develop their beliefs. There is the fire, which is man-made light. From the man-made light, strikes the puppet and casts a shadow on the cave wall. Above the cave is a God-made light, or is the sun. The slave doesn't know that the sun exists right now. And there's a stairway that leads up to an exit from the cave. One day, a slave is released. We don't really know why. I don't know that he necessarily even escapes, but one of the slaves is released and wanders behind the wall, sees that that there was a puppet master there, and that it was a puppet show, and that wasn't real. Walks by the fire, and then exits. Boom! Blinding white light. The sunlight is too much. He cannot see anything. That's a very common hallucination, a near-death experience. People will see a blinding white light. And then his eyes adjust, and for the first time, he can see a real tree, a real horse. Of course, when I draw a horse, it ends up looking like a dog. So it's supposed to be a horse drawing a carriage, but it looks like a dog pulling a carriage. And in the sky, real birds, real birds. Now, he returns, just like the hero's journey. There is, you cross the threshold into the extraordinary world, but you return to the ordinary world. However, you're changed, and now you're master of two worlds. This is kind of like a hero's journey. You escape the cave, but you have to return to the cave. Now, unlike hero's journey, this doesn't have a happy ending. The slave who returns, he's stumbling. His eyes are not used to seeing in the dark, and the other slaves make fun of him. They mock him. And then when he tries to tell them that there's a true reality outside of the cave, and this is not the true reality, they beat him to death. Now, the important thing about returning to the cave, at exit and return, is that the slave has beliefs, and the slave could be perfectly happy eating the so-called blue pill and living in the matrix, totally happy. The birds in the sky have truth, but they don't have belief. All the animals, all the plants, they're part of nature. It is the union of truth and belief that gives us knowledge. Socrates, at least his definition of knowledge, is the union of truth and belief. And the only true good is knowledge, and the only true evil is ignorance, according to Socrates. So what's an example? Let's take a universal truth like the third law of thermodynamics. That's something that you know, but you don't know that you know it. The third law of thermodynamics from Sir Isaac Newton's Principia is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's universal, and it's not a hypothesis, it's not a theory, it's a law. So that's a universal truth. Now let's take a belief. Maybe the way you were raised, or the television sitcoms you watched, or the books you read have led you to believe that you should be nice to people, that you should treat people the way you want to be treated, that, what goes around comes around, that type of thing. You have truth and you have belief, but you don't have knowledge until truth and belief bump into each other. So, for example, many years ago, I was waiting in line. A restaurant had just opened up. It was a Panda, and the line was out the door. People were waiting for 45 minutes for their lunch, and the guy in front of me, his card was declined. So I kind of saw myself. I knew how I would feel if that was me, and I'd been waiting forever to get my lunch, and my card is declined. So I picked up his lunch. I said, "Don't worry about it. I got it," and didn't know who the guy was. And then a couple years later, I went out to play trivia at a bar called the Green Dragon. They had bar trivia on Wednesday nights, and I went up to get a drink and reached for my wallet. I didn't have my wallet. I forgot it. The bartender said, he has it. He's got it. He picked it up. And I looked down, and it was the same guy that I bought lunch for. So now I have karma, actually, and an experience of it. So now I have knowledge of it.
But with a blast shield down, I can't even see. How am I supposed to fight? Ooh!